You're watching Conversations 6.0 Part 2, Silver, Comex Paper Games, and QE2.
Right. Well, we're sitting here today on Monday the 22nd, and tomorrow is options expiration. And it looks to me like JP Morgan has again failed, as I'm looking at silver being up yet again today. So that strategy that they used back on the 9th that you just spoke about, Jeff, was very short-lived, and essentially it didn't really work, did it?
No, and this is something that I've been stressing with my readers in my own writing as well, is that basically all of these market ambushes are having steadily less impact, shorter duration, and simply because the big buyers are in control of the market now, and they're not susceptible to these same sort of massive takedowns which used to decimate the sector for weeks at a time, if not months.
Right. I've likened physical silver and QE2 to the metaphor of being on a sinking ocean liner. And although the ship is obviously listing and taking on water, the band is still playing and the beautifully dressed people are still dancing. But not us, okay? Not us. We know where the precious few lifeboats are located, and we're trying our best to get our friends and our families to wake up and go on those lifeboats with us. What's your take on the tremendous hedge of safety physical precious metals still offers in this clearly insane world?
Well, in fact, I'm trying to convince readers that at this point in time, the bankers are actually doing us a service by trying to hold down the price of gold and silver, because it's allowing the huge number of people that have done nothing at all to protect themselves to date to have that final opportunity of obtaining this monetary insurance for themselves at what is still bargain prices, because, you know, no matter how much prices have appreciated over the last year or so, it's nothing compared to what we're going to see 2 or 3 years down the road. And so, you know, much like the large sovereign buyers and institutional buyers are using the pullbacks in the sector simply to get cheap bullion for themselves, this is what people should be thinking themselves as well, that, you know, anytime they see a pullback, it's an opportunity and a wake-up call that they're running out of time.
Hey, I wanted to ask you this here. Before we part ways, the smoke that's billowing out of the Comex is now visible from miles and miles away. And to quote Harvey Organ, what's going on at the Comex is the stuff of nightmares for bankers. Now, according to Coin Update News, if you include the eligible investor silver inventories in the Comex bonded warehouses, which are not available to fill Comex deliveries unless the investor specifically chooses to do so, there are only 107 million ounces of physical silver available to fulfill around 725 million ounces of contractual obligations. So my question, Jeff, is how close do you think a Comex default is?
You know, it's so hard to answer that question, because the one element of control that the bankers retain in this equation is, you know, when they want to make their final stand. And, you know, in that respect, you know, that's the one variable which we can't know ourselves, because we can't look inside their heads. If all they want to do is, you know, try to live to fight another day for as long as possible and give ground, you know, and allow the prices of precious metals to soar, you know, they may be able to prolong this game for another couple of years, maybe even slightly longer than that. On the other hand, you know, if they still have delusions of being able to control the market and being able to push prices down from current levels, you know, and they're going to look to try to hold the market back, you know, they could get obliterated in 2 weeks. So, you know, that's the one question that nobody can ever answer with precision, because it requires understanding the actual intent and strategy of these bankers.
Right. But the bottom line is that they are completely in a corner. They put themselves in a corner, and ultimately, if they try to push the price down to benefit themselves, we all, you and I and everyone like us, and the silver vigilantes are going to jump in and buy as much physical as they possibly can at cheaper prices. So it's really a no-win situation for the bankers.
Well, I devoted an entire commentary to this very point. You know, I titled it "Silly Silver Manipulators," because, you know, in fact, if you're having a problem with controlling a market, and the number one problem is the lack of inventory, and the reason you have a lack of inventory is because silver has been underpriced, and of course being underpriced causes it to be overconsumed, then pushing the price down simply makes this whole phenomenon much worse. And, so all they're doing is digging their own graves. And, so basically it's become comical now because the war is obviously completely lost for them. And, all it's a question of is how much damage they're going to do to themselves, fighting these last few battles.
I agree. I completely agree. And Jeff, we're going to link to that article in the more information section, folks. Silver Manipulators. Before I let you go, let's just put this in perspective one last time for our audience. There is still time to protect yourself because silver at today's prices still remains low by any historical standards. So, Jeff, let me ask you one last thing here. The Federal Reserve's QE2 policy is being condemned by governments around the world, calling it madness. What does QE2 mean in the long run for the U.S. dollar, in your opinion? And can a country print its way back to prosperity?
Well, no. In fact, basically, this monetizing of debt, which is what quantitative easing amounts to, is essentially the red flag that warns that an economy is on the verge of hyperinflation. And there are few, if any, examples in history of economies being able to pull back from the brink once they embark down this road. And so this is the whole thing. And the reason the condemnation is so harsh and extreme from other nations, excuse me, this is truly not only unprecedented, but it's knowingly reckless. And, everybody knows this. And, the bankers, to try to keep markets calm, are pretending that this is, simply experimental rather than insane. And, the characterizations are ludicrous because there is no end game with this. It's simply print and then print some more and borrow and print and dig yourself a deeper and deeper hole. And of course, as many people already know, the Federal Reserve was created in 1913, and in less than a century, the U.S. dollar has lost 97% of its value. And now basically all that's happening is the Federal Reserve is finishing off that final 3%.
Well, in my opinion, Jeff, no conversation about silver and gold can be complete without mentioning the criminal Federal Reserve. So thank you for doing that. And Jeff, on behalf of my subscribers and this very proactive audience and this channel, I so thank you for your time. It was a pleasure.
My pleasure, and I hope you'll have me back again sometime.
We will definitely talk again soon, Jeff. Thank you.
You bet. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
This concludes Conversation 6.0, and as always, my greatest thanks to all of you for tuning in.